sometimes it just takes that one experience for you to be set for the rest of your life. In terms of your tawakkul, in terms of your reliance in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the way He provides. I sometimes look at this name of Allah Azza wa Jalla and I think to myself, if someone really truly understood it and it resonated with him, it's impossible for him to go and consume haram. Wallah, it's impossible. But there's a very good piece of advice. One should always try to look for different sources of income, right? I don't just memorize Quran and Sunnah, by the way. I know stuff.
Welcome back to Faithfully Invested, a podcast brought to you and powered by the MCCA Income Fund. What a guest we have, all the way from Riyadh. He likes to take
Riyadh of the UK.
From the UK, Riyadh, the UK, brother. And instead, it's Abu Taymiyyah. Welcome to the podcast.
Jazakallah khair for having me on. Wassalamu alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
You can tell how excited I am. I started a little bit on the introduction.
Huh?
Subhanallah. Bro, it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast, wallahi. And so far, it's been nothing short of, I feel like a strong bond that we've created over the past couple of days, subhanallah. Yeah. Even though you didn't know my name.
Bond that started, I think, 3 years ago, right?
But you didn't know my name, so...
Yeah. Sahil, no, I can't. How can I forget this glowing face, huh?
MashaAllah. Full of nur.
He's making me blush on the camera now. But we'll go into a number of topics, inshallah. I think one that would be very relevant because of obviously the industry that we're in is Rizq. Something that, you know, every single human being on this planet, it's relatable to. One thing that I took from the VIP event that we had after the talk the other night was, you know, when you were going out to study in Riyadh and in Madinah, you know, you don't leave with a large chunk of savings. But something that you do leave with is tawakkul in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Without shadow of a doubt.
So please enlighten us on your Rizq journey.
طيب الحمد لله رب العالمين وأصلي وأسلم على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين بعثه الله شاهدا ومبشرا ونذيرا وداعيا إلى الله بإذنه وسراجا منيرا. Honestly, it's a journey, as you mentioned, and sometimes you have to experience it to really believe it. Yani, maybe that's the best way to put it, or for it to really resonate. And sometimes it just takes that one experience for you to be set for the rest of your life, in terms of your tawakkul, in terms of your reliance in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not, you know, constantly worrying and fearing what's going to happen, وهكذا. And so I've had a couple of experiences where I was a little bit unsure, should I do it, should I not? How am I going to be able to manage? I remember, subhanAllah, this was before I went to Yemen, right? Back in 2009, I believe it was. Or was it early 2010? When my parents, they made the decision for us to go abroad, learn the Quran and the Arabic language, and then come back. So that was always the plan that my parents had. And then it was then, subhanAllah, you know, when I felt, okay, this is the best time for us to leave. I did my January exams because our semester starts in September, right? So I did my January exams in college. This is after secondary school. And khalas, yani. You know, we left. And I remember at the time people were saying to me, Akhi, you know, if you go and study abroad, you take a couple of years out of your academic studies, then when you come back, you'll fall behind. Everyone would have surpassed you, right? You're going to be studying with little kids and whatever have you, this, that. And wallahi, I never looked back. I came back, you know, this is after 4 years having spent in Yemen. Even though, subhanAllah, you know, my family members, they all came back one by one. I was the only one that remained. I didn't want to leave. And then when I came back, it was a bit tough in the beginning, but everything is a test. But then within the space of 1 year, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave me more than what He gave a lot of my classmates, right? I had a nice apartment, you know, which is very hard to get at times, you know, from the council. This is something that many over there at my age at the time would dream of, right? Alhamdulillah, I managed to get married. I had a car. Like, Allah gave me a lot. Very nice paid job as well. And I remember there were graduates, right? Graduates from university who were asking me, how can I get the job that you currently have? And I'm just like some freshie who just came back from Yemen, right? No qualifications, no work experience. And subhanAllah, Allah Azza wa Jal gave me all of that in a very short space of time. So when I saw all of that, when the next time round I had to make a decision to go to Al-Madinah, I remember again, this was a very difficult conversation to have with my father. Like he turned around after I got accepted. I was so excited. I went running to my dad's office and I said, Dad, I've finally been accepted. Because even when I was in Yemen, he was trying to get me to go to Madinah. He was always very skeptical about Yemen, safety, security, and so on and so forth, right? So I went to his office, excited. Dad, look, I've just been accepted. And then he said to me, like, he didn't, my father at the time didn't even look excited. Like he said, "Khalas, yani, I've funded your studies for the last 4 years, and mashallah, my dad done amazing for me in that sense. He would send me money every month. Like I lived very good when I was in Yemen, because I was in a village, but he was sending me a good amount of money. And it's very understandable where he's coming from. I've now funded your studies all of these years. Now get on with your life, basically, right? Because every father, they want to see their kids getting married and having kids and just moving on, if that makes sense, right? So this is basically what he wanted. So Allahu Akbar, yani, when I told him that, he was just like, look, you've got a very nice paid job. How are you in the right state of mind for you to replace that with 800 riyals?
Yep.
Which I don't even think comes up to 300 Australian dollars, right? 800 riyals. May Allah bless him. And then I just left it. Wallahi, a whole year went past and I can see my name is on the list. A whole year went past. I did whatever he told me to do, which was to continue my university studies because I was doing civil engineering. And then a year after that, subhanAllah, something happened. Like everything happens for a reason. Even now what's happening, the news that we just got. Everything happens for a reason. I was meant to do my exams. And then me and one very well-known brother in the da'wah scene, we started having a race for some reason, right? I just want to teach him a lesson. So as I'm beating him, I think the people around us ended up giving me evil eye. As I'm beating him, I ended up slipping and the skin on my hand came off. And this is the hand that I used to sit my exam. So I couldn't sit my exams. I couldn't write. And then they were like, oh, you're just going to have to retake the whole year. It's fine. We're not going to kick you out or anything, but you can retake the whole year. This one I sat down with my father, took him out for a nice meal at a lovely Turkish restaurant. Our brother here, who manages the studio, he's Turkish as well, so I'm sure he's going to like this, right? So I took him out to a very fancy restaurant and he's wondering, why is Muhammad taking me out today like this? He normally doesn't do this. This is back then, And I just broke it down to him. Look, Dad, I didn't sit my exams. I have to retake it, but I have an alternative. I can go to Al Madinah and this and that. I remember he choked on his food when I told him that. Because he really wanted me to finish my engineering studies, which is perfectly understandable. And this is why I listened to him as well, right? I said, okay, let me just do what my father wants, because he's been so nice to me all of these years. And it makes a lot of sense as well. And I said to him, look, Dad, I can get a degree, I can get a master's, I can do all of that. I'll be a lot more educated than a lot of our relatives if I go down this road of getting a bachelor's and a master's. And I'll get my deen at the same time as well, And then he let me go. And making that decision again for myself really wasn't easy, right? Again, finances and whatever have you. But because I made that decision before, making that decision again, I've already seen what Allah Azza wa Jal can give you in terms of rizq. And then subhanAllah, it was even more difficult to make that decision. Like when you look at it from a bird's eye view, right? For me, it was fine, but someone thinking to himself, look, you've got kids, right? You've got family to look after, and you're going to Riyadh. Ronaldo, Neymar, they didn't do us favors moving to Riyadh. Everything just literally went through the roof, went extremely expensive. Living in Riyadh is not, and wallahi, I didn't know where a single penny was going to come from. Right? But I've seen already before, Allah did not forsake Abu Taymiyyah. He didn't forsake a student of knowledge who's trying to learn about his religion all of these years, and he's going to forsake me now. Right? That's the way I looked at it. Alhamdulillah, I haven't looked back since. So that's my relationship with rizq.
One thing that always got to me was, sorry to cut you off, I went through the dorms of the Medina University students. And Brother Abdurrahman, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with him, one of our brothers who's currently studying at the University of Medina. He took me around and he showed me...
Brother Abdurrahman from Melbourne, huh?
Abdurrahman. So he showed me how he was living.
Yeah.
Wallahi, I was like to him, bro, I don't know, what did you do wrong in life? And he goes, what do you mean? I go, you're living like a prisoner.
Sheikh, let me tell you something. I remember when I first arrived in Medina, a brother, Sheikh Abdul Razak, you know, he was doing his, I believe, his master at the time. I think he was just coming to the end of that. And then he got accepted for his PhD, right? I remember he took me to the dorms. And then as we're walking through the dorms, we went into the, you know, the toilet area. It's not like the toilets that you have over here. I mean, like they're huge. And it's got like 10, 11 sinks. And it's got like cubicles for shower and toilets and hakada, right? So in there, I think he was making wudu, and he said to me, Abu Taymiyyah, I think you're really, really going to struggle here. I looked at him. I said, Sheikh, we have running water. We've got running electricity. We didn't have that in Yemen. I lived in a village. Sometimes the water would cut. The electricity would cut. The electricity ran on a motor. So I was like, this is a blessing for me. And sometimes deep into the night when I wanted to read or wanted to memorize, I would have these head torches, right? I'd be using that. Alhamdulillah, here we got running electricity, right? And compared to what we had over there, this is indeed like a huge blessing. So sometimes, you know, you have little. When you get even a little bit more, you tend to appreciate it a lot. So I thanked Allah that He took me to Yemen before He brought me to Al-Madinah. Because sometimes coming from the UK, Australia, especially you guys, mashallah, you know, you Arabs who live these comfortable lifestyles over here in Australia, going into that kind of environment may become very, very difficult. And a lot of Westerners will struggle. This is why they say the UK students over there, the British students, they have the highest dropout rate in Al-Madinah, right? Out of all of the nationalities, the UK students have the highest dropout rate. And it makes a lot of sense because you come from that comfortable lifestyle and then you're living in a dorm. As you mentioned, what sin did you commit in order to be living in this?
I couldn't believe it. SubhanAllah, he's like to me, so the brother that I share a room with, you guys like, he's from sometimes they're from a different country.
Yeah, that can be difficult. That can either make or break your stay over there.
So like, for example, there was a brother that we met that was from Canada, but he's from like the coldest part of Canada. And he's like, the guy that they put me with in the same room is from like the hottest part of Africa. He's from Central Africa. He's like, he wants the air conditioner off, I want it on.
They have AC fights over there and arguments. Right? Where you have some, like you mentioned, it gets pretty problematic. So you have to find or you have to make an agreement with the guy, you know? Certain times he has to sacrifice, certain times. Otherwise, it's going to be very toxic in that room,
Yeah, so
it has to be like a happy medium.
Bro, it came to blows apparently. So that's what he was telling me. Like they actually
there was we know about certain cases, but there are very few cases where it got very, very heated. Very, very heated.
This may sound like a really silly question for someone that hasn't been. Can you pick and choose who like for example, if Suhail and I want to go study, can we say, look, we want to share a room together? Like, you know what I mean?
Because it depends, to be honest. It's very difficult, but if you, like, for example, start at the same time, they may put you in the same room.
Yeah.
Okay, you're both looking for a room, and then there's a room that is free. Both of you guys can maybe choose. However, if you want a room transfer, the process is pretty difficult. And I think they made it difficult for a reason, so it doesn't become something that every student is asking for. It becomes a headache in the office when you think about it.
Becomes like a logistical nightmare. Sheikh, explain to us the process of when you say you got accepted into Medina. And here in Australia, we apply to go to university, okay? And it's like we sort of know whether or not we're going to get in, okay, based on our I guess our ATAR scores, which is like the score that you need to get into the particular course, a particular university, or for a mature age student, etc. They're sort of given the heads up in advance that they're going to be approved. What's the process for Medina?
So Medina, you apply and then you leave the rest to Allah. You don't know whether you're going to get accepted or not. They have improved the system in most recent years, where they get back to you. Like in my time, you don't, like sometimes they never used to get back to you, right? They say 500,000 applicants every single year and only 3,000 get accepted. So you can imagine, as you mentioned, it's a logistical nightmare having to get back to everyone. But now it's like electronic call, and they get back to you. They either tell you whether you get accepted or initially nominated or not. And you're just going to have to, that's why I always tell the students, when you apply, you always have one of two extremes. You have one who says, once I graduate from a secular university, then I'm going to apply. As if the university is waiting for him. Like, you know, he talks about it as if he's going to accept it straight away. Like, how do you know? Apply as soon as you can and then just take it on from there. The other extreme, I believe, is someone now applying and then putting his whole life on hold. Doesn't study, doesn't work, right? As if he has some sort of guarantee that he will get accepted in Medina. And it's not like that. It's not as straightforward as that. So I always say to them, just continue with your life. Work, save up money, right? One thing that will help you a lot when you go there is having, a bit of saving, right? That'll
Being
help you a lot.
established.
Yeah,
Having some
أخي,
sort of
money
establishment,
helps. Imam al-Shafi'i even he said لن تنال العلم إلا بستة سأنبيك عن تفصيلها ببياني. You're not going to acquire knowledge except with 6 things. One of them he said al-bulgha. Having finances can help. It can definitely help. Like, subhanAllah, I'll tell you guys something, right? That you remind me of now. The bit of finances that I had, like I didn't have a lot, right? I would go back in the summers and just save up. Maybe I'll have like what, £2,000 that I've saved up within that summer, which is not a lot to be honest. And I would use that for taxi money, right? I would leave the university 5 days a week, right? 15 minutes before Asr, right? And I would pay 3 riyals. 4 people will jump into the taxi, everyone pays 3 riyals. That's nothing, yani. How much is that in a, maybe it's like,
it's $1.
It's like
$1
maybe $1, right? But for pounds it's even less, yani. It's less than a pound.
Yeah.
And subhanAllah, there were people who weren't fortunate to be able to take the taxi before Asr every day. And I'd be saving a lot of time. Getting there for Asr, between Asr and Maghrib is the bulk of your day. If you miss that, you're probably not going to get much done because the whole morning you're in university, so you're doing the university studies, then you have your haram studies, like your memorization, your mutun, text that you're memorizing and that you're reading to the teacher and so on and so forth, right? It's between Asr and Maghrib. After Maghrib, to Isha is only like an hour, it's very short. So if you don't benefit from that time, you can forget about that day. So long story cut short, just being able to go before Asr and getting there for Asr and, you know, hitting the ground running from Asr, wallahi, it benefited me a lot. While the other ones, the less fortunate, they would have to wait for the university bus, right? And that comes after Asr. And then even then, getting onto the bus is a big headache because all the students, they run towards it, everyone's trying to get there first.
Yeah.
So little bits like that, or little things like that, make a difference.
Yes,
Yeah.
but just thinking about how you had to be a lot more calculated with how you do things. You know, they say failing to plan is planning to fail, subhanAllah. And you start to realize how important it is, even beyond financially. It's also about like life in general. So you have to have at least somewhat of a plan. So you know, there's tawakkul and there's tawakkul. So how much of that do you stress to the audience to be, you know, aware of what they're doing, inshallah, when they move?
Yeah, of course, the tawakkul, it stands on 2 pillars. الاعتماد على الله مع الأخذ بالأسباب. It is to place your reliance in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to also take the means. It's like somebody who's saying, I want to get married, right? I'm going to put my trust in Allah, and then he just sits at home like, what are you waiting for? The woman to drop through the roof or something? Yani, you have to go out and search, yani, right? Ask people, ask your sister, does she know anyone? Ask your mother, perhaps she can find you a reasonable sister, someone that's suitable. There are halal marriage apps, not the haram zina apps. That's not, you know, the halal ones. You can go on these apps and take the means. Making dua as well, that is a means as well. Begging Allah to help you find it, to, you know, direct you in the right direction. Yani. Yeah. Likewise, when it comes to jobs, right?
Yeah.
Make dua to Allah Azza wa Jal, look for it. Once upon a time, we would take the CVs, you know, go online, apply, call people, while at the same time you've put your full reliance in Allah that He's going to give you that which is best.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, what they do is they kind of like, they say, khalas, I applied for a job, that's it. Whatever happens, happens, moving from there. But, you know, you talk about himma, you know, like actually having to put in the effort.
Yeah.
SubhanAllah, what you were saying, like even like when you're in Yemen, you could just sit there and go, you know what, khalas, there's no light, there's nothing for me here. Like I'm just gonna go to sleep and just cry, lick my wounds, you know what I mean? Like as they like to say. Like how important is himma, you know, like and struggle and strife in these situations.
Yeah. Even Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, بِقَدْرِ الْكَدِّ تُكْتَسَبُ الْمَعَالِ وَمَنْ طَالَبَ الْعُلَى سَهِرَ اللَّيَالِ. Right? In accordance to how much effort you put into something, this is how much of loftiness you will acquire. Right? And whoever wants loftiness, right, he will have sleepless nights. And that's with everyone. It's not just limited to seeking knowledge. Right? When you look up the lives of some of these multi-billionaires, you know, they put in a lot of work. Right? When you look at the likes of Elon Musk, it doesn't surprise me that he's one of the richest people on the face of this earth. I'm not mentioning his name to dignify him in any way, shape, or form, but he put in the work. They say about him that he would spend, 7 days a week at times, and he would sleep in the office and
Very important.
It reminds me, I think, takes me back to the time that I first met Suhail. So when I got Sahel's application to start managing the marketing at MCCA, I was sort of I was doing the marketing and a number of other jobs at MCCA. And subhanAllah, I said, who's this guy? And I got a few phone calls from a few people in the community saying, you have to look at this guy. So obviously he hustled his way in. It wasn't just a case of someone submitting their resume and coming straight in. He got a few of the brothers to call me.
I should have said it's come a long way since the first time I saw him.
Yeah, well, he's
pretty much.
He got a few of the boys to call me.
Actually made some money now. SubhanAllah, actually I have a funny story about that one. I think he's adding a little bit too much.
I'm going to go off on a
spice to the
tangent.
story.
He doesn't want me to go on this tangent because he knows what I'm going to say.
I'll be honest with you. I
I
got
worked
to
at
the
Maktab Sus.
I was very subhanAllah. This is probably like my own
MashaAllah.
story. Alhamdulillah. Thank you, bro. Appreciate it. Wallah.
Habibi.
But wallahi, I feel like this is something that obviously like anyone can draw from, and I only say this for full benefit that everyone who's watching this will be able to kind of like look at my story and just go, you know what, he's right. It's all in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's hands anyway. So I was doing my master's degree. I remember walking back to my car once and I was just like, I've been applying for so many graduate jobs, talking about hundreds of them. I'm just like, it's never gonna happen. Khalas. I'm just gonna accept the fact that I'm gonna have to try and do my own freelance work for the rest of my life, and then hopefully something happens. And then one of the brothers that works, Yemen at MCCA, posted the job advert, and then I was like, you know what?
Just give it a go.
If it says cover letter, I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna apply for it because I got so disheartened writing all these cover letters and stuff like that, and it said only apply with your CV. Khalas, I put in my CV, the Arab, and I get a call from Adam.
Adam came calling, huh?
Subhanallah, yeah. And I remember the conversation when I rocked up as well. I actually ended up getting an interview for another job. And this job was non-Sharia compliant. Let's just say that, subhanAllah. It's in marketing, but it was something that would have made me actually go against my ethics and my morals while earning an income. And subhanAllah, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told me, like, look, there's two ways. You can either go if this is a lesser paying job. The other one's what looks to be a more polished opportunity and it's higher paying. Choose which way you want to go. And then I was like, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
I can't do that, subhanAllah.
Yeah, and it's that hadith as well as my favorite hadith. And this is what I always, subhanAllah, keep fresh in my mind. You don't leave something for the sake of Allah, except Allah will give you that which is better. It's my favorite hadith.
SubhanAllah.
إِنَّكَ لَن تَدَعَ شَيْءٍ اتِّقَاءً لِلَّهِ إِلَّا أَعْطَاكَ الْخَيْرَ. And it was that hadith, when I first left Al Yemen, that someone told me that I still make dua for. I don't know who he was. Can't remember who he was. But that's honestly something that really helped me in my journey. Leaving everything behind and then.
Sheikh, it's so important for us to always remember, especially living in the West, that we need to realign ourselves always, constantly check ourselves and ensure that the line of work that we're in is aligned to our moral compass.
Yeah.
That moral compass can adjust at times based on our understanding, but it's important, I think, and even Suhail being in that position, I've been in that position numerous times. Because of where we're at in our career, quite often we get offered roles and jobs, and we've been offered roles and jobs that it's very hard to say no to, but because of our spirituality and our understanding in the Sharia and what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, we need to avoid these jobs. Can you give any nasiha to us in terms of obviously earning at halal rizq, and just because you're a professional doesn't necessarily mean that your rizq is halal? Not giving fatwa, but just give us some sort of, like you've just mentioned that hadith, that is very reassuring for us. There's something that is always, I guess, it can give us that support to make sure we continue moving forward in the journey that we're on.
Habibi, one thing I've learned over time is that haram money doesn't really last too long. There's not barakah in it. You can get a lot of money coming in, it'll just go very, very quickly. Right? Even the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "La yadkhul al-jannata lahmun nabatat min suht." A piece of flesh that was produced through haram, it's not going to enter into al-Jannah. And this is what you're feeding you're literally feeding fire to your children, to your family, right? This is what you're doing when you think about it. There's no barakah in it. And we mentioned in the program that I done in the hall, our main event with Olive Tree, it's from the signs of the hour, right? It's from the signs of the hour that people are going to start consuming riba. لَيَأْتِي عَلَى النَّاسِ زَمَانٌ لَا يُبَالِي الرَّجُلُ. One doesn't care where he gets his wealth from, min halal or min haram. It's one of the signs of da'wah that it's going to become so widespread like that. But at the end of the day, there's no barakah whatsoever. Like Allah is telling you, وَعَدَ اللَّهِ لَا يُخْلِفُ اللَّهُ. This is the promise of Allah Azza wa Jal. He's not going to fail in His promise that He will give you that which is best for you. You just do the right thing. Do the right thing and you'll get whatever, inshallah ta'ala, is best for you. So why would you try to turn to haram? Yani I've even recently, and it's one of the, it really kind of like, went far and wide. There's a lecture, it's called Surah Kaf. He left it for the sake of Allah. And right at the end, if they can get a chance to maybe watch it, the viewers, I talked about a lot of people who left haram for the sake of Allah and how Allah Azza wa Jal gave them so much more better. I'll give you guys something that happened. I really like to mention this story. A brother who lived around the corner from me. And I remember, this is when I first came back from Yemen, we were going on Hajj together because my dad, he had a Hajj company, would take people yearly. And he was coming and he had just left his accounting job, right? Because he was engaging in some like haram elements that wasn't Sharia compliant and وهكذا. And he was aware of the hadith, لَعَنَ اللَّهُ آكِلَ الرِّبَا وَمُوكِلَهُ وَكَاتِبَهُ وَشَهِدِهِ وَقَالَ هُمْ فِيهِ سَوَاء. They're all the same, the one who writes it, the one who's a witness to it, the one who consumes it, وهكذا. Long story cut short. Well, I remember he was going through a tough time. And all of his savings now is going towards Hajj, not knowing what's going to happen after that. Right? He comes back with a lot of uncertainty. And subhanAllah, he's got an offer waiting. Right? He received the email that he has an English teaching job in Mecca. Right? Wallah, an English teaching job in Mecca. SubhanAllah, over the years, I've met a lot of people who teach English. I'm sure this is a phenomenon, right? Australians go all the time to Saudi. Like, I don't think I've ever met someone other than his brother. I'm talking about 10 years that I've been in and around Saudi and going back and forth. I don't think I've ever met someone that teaches English in Mecca. Right? They're either in Riyadh, in Jeddah, some are fortunate enough to be in Al-Madinah, but I've never met anyone teaching in Mecca other than his brother. And wallah, it wasn't an easy sacrifice they had to make. Right? It wasn't an easy sacrifice. And I really put this down to the level of sacrifice that he made. Right? And I remember it was the most chilling job. Like, it was this rich guy, one of the richest guys in Mecca, that employed him to teach his children. Half the time they weren't even turning up. So both him and his wife got a job. Right? And they're just going to the haram every other day, yani, the Kaaba, going back and forth. And then subhanAllah, he ended up buying the biggest house on the road. When he came back in Leicester, he ended up buying the biggest house on the road that he wouldn't have dreamed of if he was still in the UK. Or maybe doing some of these other jobs that, it's barely making ends meet, yani. Yeah.
When I think about it, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us so many life hacks. And He's told us, like, I didn't leave you without you needing, like, you've got all the information you require, but you just need to seek the knowledge, subhanAllah.
Yeah.
The one thing that always gets to me is, if you have shukr, I'll increase you.
Sah.
Subhanallah.
Sah.
How simple is that? For us as human beings, we think, no, I need to put in more hours of work, I need to do A, B, and C. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us.
I think I'm going to deliver this lecture. I delivered it years ago, over 10 years ago, but I think it just kind of like got lost somewhere. But I put together a lecture, 20 means in how to increase your provision. 20 means. You can try whatever you want. You can take as many courses from Warren Buffett and this and that. Not that I'm saying you're not going to walk away with anything. But you might get some good tips. Like, one of the tips that I personally benefited from when it came to Warren Buffett was, he said, if you rely on one source of income, you're one step away from poverty. We can take these kind of advices from people of expertise. Even Allah says, فَاسْأَلْ بِهِ خَبِيرًا, ask the people of expertise, right? But what Allah Azza wa Jal tells you is far better than anyone else. 20 means or causes in how to increase your provision. One of them is shukr. Yeah. Something that I remembered right now, subhanAllah. When you mentioned, لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ, when you thank Allah, Allah will give you more. I remember when I came back from Yemen, desperately I was looking for a job. I ended up finding a job eventually. It was a nice office job while everyone else was working at warehouses. And I got sacked after like 2 weeks, even though I was so thankful to Allah. I done sajda shukr. And I'm like to myself, but Allah made this promise. I'm sure something's going to come out of this. It doesn't make sense, yani. I thanked Allah and now I've lost my job. I'm sure there's someone else there. And it just got better and better and better and better. So you thank Allah, Allah will give you more.
Yeah.
And then later on, subhanAllah, when I ended up getting that really good job that I talked about earlier, like it was reaching a point where I'm about to get sacked now. Like again, like I've thanked Allah, you know, too many times, yani, for whatever He gave me, and then subhanAllah, something better than that came. Yeah. So Jazakallah khair for mentioning that. Yeah.
Imagine being that accountant. All I can think about is this accountant that left his life in Leicester, and his local masjid became
Mecca.
haram.
So back and forth to Mecca all the time.
You can see the Kaaba every day.
Both him and his wife, and over there was no tax, by the way. Huh? What do you guys call it? You guys
No
call it
income
something
tax, yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't have to pay tax, yani.
GCC, no income tax.
GCC, yeah.
No income tax.
Subhanallah. Man.
Yeah.
That's like, I think that's everyone's dream. 100,000 reward every time.
Yeah.
Every salah, right? Wow. Subhanallah. You know, it takes me back to like when I went to Mecca. So alhamdulillah, first time I did Umrah was in February. And, you know, talk about taking a leap of faith. I always used to ask myself, like,
To take what?
take a leap of faith.
Leap of faith.
It's not really
I thought you
that
said
big.
labor
No,
for a
no.
moment.
So,
I
you
keep
know,
making jokes about the Australians and how they eat up the words. Yeah.
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 You know what?
Australians, innit?
I'm gonna have to
Absolutely.
start pronouncing all my words fully, just so everyone can understand.
Yeah.
God
We're
knows-
Brits out here, Habibi.
Yeah,
We're from Britain.
subhanallah. Yeah. Butter, you know, butter will come. So we talk about taking a leap of faith. You know, we hear the story of Musa, which is basically consistently leaps of faith that he takes with the assurance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that everything will be fine. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has always assured us that everything will be fine. I believe that something that's very important when we see things that happen to us in our lives is our perspective. Sometimes we look at things from our lens or our limited lens, and then what we do is we paint the situation based off of things from our limited intellect.
Yeah.
I just wanted to get your perspective on that in general. Like, how important is it to have a good assumption of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His decree?
Like extremely important. This is when your tawheed comes in, right? A lot of people think that tawheed is just knowing that no one has the right to be worshipped in truth except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that Prophet Muhammad is his final messenger. There's so much more to it. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has in fact more than 99 names. I know the hadith says, Inna lillahi tis'an wa tis'ina isma, or tis'ina isman. Allah has 99 names, but he's not limited to it. Yani he has 99. Man ahsaha dakhil al-jannah. Whoever does man ahsaha, whoever does that, yani dakhil al-jannah, he will enter into al-jannah. And it's more than just memorizing it, yani trying to understanding, applying it in your life, and so on and so forth. Like when you just stand over the name of Allah Azza wa Jalla, Ar-Razzaq, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the way He provides. Like I sometimes look at this name of Allah Azza wa Jalla and I think to myself, if someone really truly understood it and it resonated with him, it's impossible for him to go and consume haram. Wallah, it's impossible. Like you know Allah Azza wa Jalla is promising you that He's going to give you that which is better. If you leave it's haram, why would you do the opposite? Like why? Allah Azza wa Jalla is the provider for Elon Musk and Bill Gates and whoever else it might be, Jeff Bezos. He's their provider. He's your provider. And He's making you all these promises. He's shown you what He's able to give people. And you've been instructed how to go about it. Just take the blueprint, you have a blueprint how to go about it. Like why would you do that? And you're being told as though this haram money is not going to benefit you. It's not going to last. There's no barakah in it.
Yep.
Shooting yourself in the foot.
And it takes us back to what I mentioned right at the beginning. It sometimes requires one experience for you to really resonate with that, and then you'll never look back. Try it, my brothers and my sisters who are listening. See what happens, right? And when you mentioned with regards to husn al-dhan, like Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he said, وَالَّذِي نَفْسِي بِيَدِهِ. He swore by Allah, by the one who my soul is in his hand. لا يحسن عبدنا ظن بالله عز وجل إلا أعطاه إياه ذلك بأن الخير بيده. Never does an individual have good thoughts of Allah Azza wa Jal, except Allah will, except Allah will give it to him. And that is because the goodness is in the hands of Allah Azza wa Jal. Right? So, it's a tweak of mindset. If you're always negative in your head, you're not going to get anywhere. Just tweak the way you think. Right? That Allah Azza wa Jal is as you think of Him, and He will give you that which you're inshallah ta'ala, looking for, and if it's best for you, and you just take it on from there, right? When things are not going your way, for you now to start thinking, look, why is Allah Azza wa Jal punishing me? No, sometimes Allah Azza wa Jal holds things back to give you that which is better. But because of your limited intellect, you're not seeing it, right? You're not seeing it, as Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala mentions. Like we're very hasty. يعني خلق الإنسان عجولا. He wants it right now and he thinks that this is the best thing for him. No, wait a little bit. If I told you, akhi, just wait another year, you'll get a better wife, يعني. You'll wait, يعني. It keeps you waiting and anticipated. And that's with a lot of things, right?
There was actually a statement. I know me and Adam were having conversations, the late night conversations together. And there was a statement that a sheikh said that just stuck. Subhanallah. It's like sometimes you have to release what's in your hand currently to accept another blessing.
Ya wallahi. Ya wallah.
So,
Without a shadow of a doubt.
It can be so scary in the moment. But
You can
then,
say that about relationships as well. Sometimes someone needs to leave, right? Your close circle, right? In order for someone else to come in. Because they're occupying that space, yani.
that's correct.
Yeah.
And for us, we know we limited time, limited effort. We only have and I like to see it like this, subhanAllah, like all our blessings in our lives, like our parents, our money, our health, our wealth, our free time, all these things have like this thing here in front of me, a little ticking time clock that's winding down. Because everything in this
How
world
long is left, by the way?
We got plenty of time, don't worry, inshallah. But so like for me, it's like I always like to reflect on things, like just take a step back and just like understand, like, all right, I might not have this blessing that I'm aiming for right now, but look at all the other blessings that are ticking away, subhanAllah.
Yeah.
And for me, it just puts me in a position where I'm just like, you have to be thankful currently.
Yeah.
What happens when you have shukr, subhanAllah.
Yeah. Ibn al-Qayyim says, لِجَهْلِهِ بِمَصَالِحِهِ. Like he's ignorant about that which is best for him. This is the term that he used. We're very ignorant of that. We want things now, right? Right now, this is when we want it. Not realizing that, earlier I was talking about, subhanAllah, with this whole situation that happened, that there was times when I was invited to certain countries. And yes, I wanted to go. I was still at the university. And but subhanAllah, some people went behind my back in order to get it cancelled and everything. I can either start retaliating or just leave it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and look at the positive side of things. That perhaps there'll be a time, when it's a lot better for me to go then. And that's exactly what happened. Like if you asked me, would I have preferred to go the first time or maybe later on? Every day of the week I would have said to you I would go later on because it turned out to be so much more better. The da'wah had reached so many more people and this gave them the chance for them to attend in person. And there was more institutions inviting you, which wasn't the case once upon a time.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Going off that, Sheikh, working at MCCA and in the community, we come across a lot of fractions in our community, especially here within Australia. And we know the Quran explicitly tells us, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. Right, and hold close to the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, do not make differences. And there are differences of opinion on a number of things and a lot of ikhtilaf on serious issues and whatnot. And we find that our community is very quick to jump the gun and very quick to release videos and very quick to come on the attack and do exactly what you've just said. What advice can you give us as a community in Australia to sort of reunite?
So if you could just maybe go back, like if you can be a little bit more specific.
Yeah, مثلا we have in our community people that you can say can have good or bad intentions in making us sort of have fractions and not wanting to work with one another, wanting to work against one another. In fact, some people actually thrive on a lack of social cohesion within the Islamic sphere and with the Islamic community. For those people that are doing this intentionally or unintentionally, can you give us some level of nasiha that can sort of shine some light as to why this is divisive and what can we do in order for us to move forward, inshallah?
So as you mentioned, the issue of unity is extremely important, right? Allah Azza wa Jalla time and time again, and he quoted the verse, وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. Hold on to the rope of Allah, do not disunite. Even Allah says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ فَرَّقُوا دِينَهُمْ وَكَانُوا شِيعًا. Right? Allah talks about this unity, splitting away from the jama'ah and so on and so forth. So it's a maqsid shar'i, and sometimes we forget this, right? It is one of the most important of objectives within our sharia. Even Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, وَمِنَ الْقَوَاعِدِ الْعَظِيمَةِ الَّتِي هِيَ مِنْ جِمَاعُ الدِّينِ. From the important principles in our religion, that, comprises the whole religion, right? He says, إصلاح ذات البين واجتماع الكلمة وتأليف القلوب, right? To remove the animosity and the negative things between brothers, right? To come together, right? اجتماع الكلمة, to bring the hearts close to one another, right? So this is basically what he mentions. This is very, very important, extremely important, right? And if we're not going to agree on theological issues, these theological discussions have been going on for a very, very long time, very, very long time. And I don't believe these theological differences are ever going to come to an end, right? Bearing in mind that it's been going on for such a long time. And as time goes on, it only gets worse and worse and worse and worse. However, there are common issues that we as Muslims here in the West are facing, right? Things are getting very, very colorful, right? We have the modern day ideologies. At the end of the day, when the kafir, or if you want to call it, when the chicken comes home to roost, yani, that disbeliever looks at you all the same, right? They look at you all the same. It doesn't say this guy is this group or that group. No, you guys are all Muslims, and we're dealing with all of you the same, And this is very, very important that the Muslims, they come together despite their theological differences on common issues such as this to deal with it accordingly. Otherwise, we're going to get eaten up alive, That's exactly what's going to happen.
I think we heard it last night that we're 800,000 in Australia.
Yeah.
And the Australian population is now
Which I still don't believe, I don't believe it's 8,000.
I actually thought we were above 1 million. I thought we were about 1.2.
I told him if every Lebanese guy has 10 men, how can that only be
I don't get it. Suhail's family is a kabila in itself. They are Mishmish in Australia, or at
They're
least
not
in
registering,
Melbourne. They're about 500,000 Sheikh. So if they're about 500,000 from their daya in Melbourne,
Allahu Akbar.
I can't imagine we're only 100,000. But yeah, Jazakallah khair. I think it's very well said.
So these theological issues are extremely, extremely important. But like I said, I honestly believe, and I've said this a number of times, that I don't think it's most productive for people to start coming out online and jumping onto Twitter and engaging in a lot of these arguments and disputations.
Yeah.
A lot of the time it doesn't get anywhere, right? For these people of knowledge to get together, especially in the environment that we're in.
Yes.
Habib, we're being waged war against from every single direction. With a lot of these modern day ideologies, the aqaid, the beliefs of our children on the line. We're talking about atheism, we're talking about all of these other isms and schisms that leaves you on the borderline of Islam. And the colorful things that I talked about as well. And so many other things, right? Their religions on the line. These theological differences, they are extremely important as well. However, are we taking the right approach in order to deal with this? Right? I honestly love the way Ibn Taymiyyah used to go about it. Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah ta'ala, he even says this, right? That there was a lot of animosity between the Hanabila and the Asha'ira, right? Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah ta'ala, he's Athari in Aqidah, which is different to the Ash'ari Aqidah. But even then, he would have these sittings with them in a civilized manner, right? Engaging in discussions, trying to perhaps put forward that which he sees to be the truth and convincing the opposition, if you want to call it that, or those who differ with him. Like having these conversations, do you see what I'm saying?
100%.
Like as for how people are going about dealing with it, I don't think this is productive. Not short term, not long term, in any way, shape or form. Let the people of knowledge from different backgrounds come together, not any random Tom, Dick and Harry who has no knowledge whatsoever. Let them come together, lock yourself in that room and then fight, inside of that room.
Exactly.
Figuratively speaking.
And then you don't let it seep out into the streets, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because then you have, like you said, every Tom, Dick and Harry just getting involved and throwing their perspective
and it comes with a big mafsada as well that sometimes you don't realize. When someone comes into Islam and then he sees a lot of these splits and these differences spilling all over the internet, like wallahi, whether we see it or not, I'm telling you, this is a reality. People think, look, I've just left Christianity with all the difference. They're fighting amongst themselves as well. You know what? Forget all of this, innit? You see what I'm saying?
Such a good point.
This is a mafsada that needs to be taken into consideration. It's a con, right? Yeah.
I think
Allah knows best, innit?
Allah knows best, yes, subhanAllah. We've seen, like you've mentioned, that these differences have been around for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
Ashari, Athari, Maturidi, these Aqidah differences have been around for so long. And even today I was listening to a lecture where it was talking about the first I think the first sect that came out of Ahl Sunnah Jama'ah, I think it was the Abadi sect that the specific talker was speaking about in Oman, and how their differences were more aligned to, I think it was to the Maturidi, right? From memory. And he was pretty much saying these sects exist and these groups exist, and we're never going to see eye to eye on certain things, and there's no point us talking about it. And then went on about how Imam Malik was talking about how the layman should not be talking about deen on the streets. It's not for the layman to debate deen on the streets. How important is that in Melbourne, or specifically Australia? We have a lot of people that may not have a lot of knowledge, but they're speaking on the streets and causing these frictions and these factions to sort of reflect. Because we grew up in an environment, Sheikh, wallahi, where everything's on YouTube, and a lot of the YouTube videos is like on the streets, and you see things happening that aren't really aligned to our values and our morals. At times can be quite intimidating as well, and it's sort of seeping here in Australia. We can see it a lot. Do you see any benefit in this?
Wallahi, the advice that I always give to young students of knowledge, beginning students of knowledge, focus on learning your religion. Focus, right? A lot of these argumentations, disputations, debates, it's way above your head. You learn a little bit, and then you think, khalas, you're Shaykhul Islam, and you just begin to argue your way through these discussions. Habibi, study. That stage will eventually come, right? That stage will eventually come, and I guarantee you, when you reach that stage, you're not going to be dealing with it how you're doing it at this moment in time. Now you have this youthful exuberance, this excitement, and you're only going to prevent yourself from acquiring knowledge. Like a really nice benefit that I took away from Ibn Kathir rahimahullah ta'ala, from the hadith of, I believe it's Ubad ibn Samit radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam kharaja. He came out one day in order to tell the people about when Laylatul Qadr is going to be, right? And then what happened was, فَخَرَجَ فُلَانٌ, the narration states, أو فَتَلَاحَ فُلَانٌ وَفُلَانٌ. Two people started arguing with one another. Messenger came out to tell them about Laylatul Qadr. So he saw this argumentation that is taking place. فَرُفِعَتْ. Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam forgot. It was lifted, right? فَعَسَى أَن يَكُونَ خَيْرًا لَكُمْ. And the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, perhaps this is going to be good for you. And then he said, التمسوها في الخامسة والسابعة والتاسعة. Look for Laylatul Qadr on the 25th, the 27th, and 29th. Right? Ibn Kathir, he says, what you can take away from this is أن المماراة تقطع الفائدة. These argumentations and these disputations, right? It causes the fa'idah, the benefit, to be lost. Right? You're beginning student, now you just started right now and you're arguing, and this happens across the spectrum. You always find groups of people that are very badly mannered, right? They lack the basic respect that you should have in discussions, right? And they're just very, very vulgar in their speech, very vile, right? It's unacceptable, wallahi. This is not scholarship, right? This is very childish and immature, the way a lot of them, they go about. Like if I see someone, like, is there anything greater than someone insulting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, claiming that he has a son? Or someone claiming now, I'm your Lord the Most High. I was telling this to a brother the other day that messaged me on X, right? And because he was very, very disrespectful the way he messaged me, right? Or the way he responded, very disrespectful. And I said to him, look, you know what you're basically asking about? And this was about something that, I released the other day, that clarification video. And I said to him, do you think it's appropriate for you to engage with me in this particular manner? I think he used some very bad words. It wasn't acceptable at all. And then he said, what would you say to someone who said X, Y, and Z? And he's referring to that. I said to him, Habibi, am I worse than Fir'aun? And are you better than Musa, alayhi salatu wasalam? Right? Fir'aun, who claimed, أَنَا رَبُّكُمُ الْأَعْلَى, I am your Lord the Most High. مَا عَلِمْتُ لَكُم مِّنْ إِلَهٍ غَيْرِ, I haven't come to know of a Lord, right, that is better than me. I haven't come to know that. He claimed to be Allah, yani. Right? And even then Allah, when he sent Musa alayhi salam and also Harun alayhi salatu wassalam, said, فَقُولَ لَهُ قَوْلًا لَيْنًا لَعَلَّهُ يَتَذَكَّرُ وَيَخْشَى. Speak to them in a manner that is gentle. I know, of course, in the Sharia there has to be times when sternness and strictness and harshness is used. But majority of the time it should be what? Being soft and gentle. Like, how are you expecting to convince me with whatever you believe and you're speaking in this manner? Well, I credit to the brother, he said, yeah, you're right. Sometimes we're in that very toxic environment and Habibi, the guy is not worse than Fir'aun, brother. We engage with Christians. We engage with people at times who insult Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha. This is how they've been brought up. You need to convince him, okay, otherwise. But you being harsh and swearing at him or insulting him, and you're not going to be able to get a message across like that. Right? Even Allah Azza wa Jalla tells us about our Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَظًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَانْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. If you were rough and tough, they would have what? Dispersed. They would have run away from you.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? How are you expecting to get your message across and you're speaking this, man, and you go on to X, you see this all the time. Wallah, across the spectrum. Right? Even people who would have the same aqeedah as myself behave in the exact same way. And I'm against all of that, wallahi. I don't believe that this is the right course of action in regards to how to, engage in these discussions. I honestly, definitely believe that there should be discourse, but in a manner that is a lot better than what we see at this moment in time. Social media has given everybody a voice, right? Every Dom, Dick and Harry just jumps on and says whatever he wants, and he propagates whatever he thinks.
Yes.
I remember, I think it was Mike Tyson that said this, right? He goes, once upon a time you'll get punched in the mouth if you said something to another person's face. But today with social media, it's made people so much more courageous and brave. Huh? Not that I'm endorsing violence.
Yeah,
I don't incite violence.
No, of course.
I'm a compassionate man.
MashaAllah.
So I always mention.
Pacifist,
Yeah. But this is the reality of the matter.
Yeah.
Wallah, akhi, yani, he wouldn't dare come to your face. Yani. Everyone says everything now. It might be an introvert individual, but he types. Yani. Huh?
Keyboard warrior.
Or he
Keyboard
cuts.
warrior.
He cuts.
Keyboard gangster.
Yeah,
Huh?
keyboard gangster. They cut videos. They edit videos. They paraphrase.
Yeah.
And they type and they.
And then, like, if you were to call him or speak to him, even by voice, like,
He'll buckle.
he wouldn't
on the spot.
respond. Yeah.
No, he'll buckle.
You know, some
Yeah.
people, I've noticed this before, they actually try to trigger you on purpose so that they can get a response. And when they get a response, it's just because I wanted to get your attention.
Yeah.
So I'm not in that stage, alhamdulillah, but I'm pretty sure you would have copied a
Yeah,
couple
like
of
all
times.
the time. They're crying out for attention.
But
Even Imam Shafi'i talked about it. He said, يخاطبني السفيه بكل قبح فأكره أن أكون له مجيبا يزيد سفاهة وأزيد حلما كعود. Was it? يزيد سفاهة وأزيد علما كعود زاده الإحراق طيبا. نعم. You know when you burn oud, right? It increases in his scent, right? He goes, the safih, the foolish person, he addresses me with every type of evil, and I dislike to respond back to him. He increases in his foolishness while I increase in what? Al-hilm, right? Forbearance, patience, taking things in a calculated way, وهكذا. While he increases in what? His ignorance. Like a lot of people don't realize that when you respond back to him, you've actually relieved him. But when you keep silent, he just increases in his rage. Bro, let him talk.
No.
Right? Allah will deal with this kind of individual who's being ill-mannered, and a lot of them don't last long. Wallah Habibi, in the last 10 years, how many accounts have I seen on Twitter, on X, whatever you want to call it, that were so ill-mannered? They've fallen off, and then another guy comes. Right? I'm sure he's not the same guy that's just changing his name. It's different people that keep coming along, and then eventually they die down, then someone else comes, then you have a lot of people don't last. A lot of these people don't last. Wallahi, they don't last.
exactly. So you just gotta.
Their sins, akhi, wallahi, it ties you down, man. And eventually you fall off. وَلَنْ يُشَاذَ الدِّينَ أَحْدٌ إِلَّا غَلَبَهُ. Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, never is an individual very rough and tough and overburdens himself, except that he won't be able to continue.
SubhanAllah.
Yeah.
Just because I gotta be conscious of time, I wanted to ask one last question. We always wrap up with guests. SubhanAllah, I would love this discussion to go on much longer, but we have studio time, SubhanAllah. But one piece of advice that you've received about finances that stuck with you to today, and it's something you live by.
There's quite a few. Warren Buffett's one was pretty impressive, I think. When he said that if you rely on one source of income, you're one step away from poverty. I don't fully agree with it. I mean, there are limitations to it, of course. But there's a very good piece of advice. One should always try to look for different sources of income. Right? I don't just memorize Quran and Sunnah, by the way. I memorize stuff.
Sheikh, you're actually the second person that we've had on the podcast that has said this.
Oh, really?
Yeah, mashallah. So the other one, I believe, was Shu'aib. I think he said it.
from.
So I think Shaib said the same.
I think
one.
I told him that.
No, mashallah. There we go. Shaib, you're on notice, Habib. We'll see you soon.
Abu Taymiyyah.
Subhanallah.
Jazakallah khair.
I think one other one is when there's a lot at stake, don't take any risks.
Mm.
And that's a lot more general. I think my dad one time said that to me. Right? When there's a lot at stake, don't take too many risks.
That's
But I think they tell you sometimes the complete opposite, right?
Yeah.
Take the risks.
Take the
and-
risk. Yeah.
No, of course, you have to sometimes take risks. That's with every transaction.
No.
But when there is a lot of stake, I'll give you an example. My dad would take people to Hajj, right? And let's just say, for example, each one has paid something like £5,000. And you have 2 buses full. You know, if you multiply, let's just say each bus, you've got 50 people, 100 times 5,000, that's £500,000 on the line. You know what time he would make them leave? 8 hours. And it's only 2 hours away. Let's just 2 hours away from London. He would make them leave 8 hours before the flight.
Just to be
You know,
sure.
Just to mitigate.
Yeah, because
Just to
anything can
mitigate.
happen.
Anything
Imagine
can
now
happen.
the bus breaks down. You've got all that money on the line.
Wallah, you're right.
And he would say, don't just go with any company. Go with this company. Why this one specifically? I think they were called Osden Clark at the time. If this breaks down, they'll send another. And of course, it needs time for it to get there as well. There's traffic as well.
No.
So that's so especially when I go back to do my studies overseas, I don't just leave like one day before my visa ends because anything can happen. It shocks me that students sometimes do that, taking that huge risk. That could literally finish off your studies. I go 2-3 days before that, knowing anything could happen. That's more than just a financial advice. That's a life
Life advice.
life hack. Yani.
Perfect. Subhanallah.
Inshallah.
I feel like it's a perfect way to end the podcast.
Oh, Allah,
Inshallah.
Jazakallah
Ustadna, wallahi, it was a pleasure to have you on. I
Jazakallah
wish
khair.
we could have had more time. I'm going to blame Aidan over there for that. But we really appreciate you coming
I
on.
like your studio as well, Aidan. MashaAllah.
MashaAllah, that's nice. Yeah.
So, Jazakallah khairan for watching. Don't forget to
Barakallah
like, comment, and subscribe on the channel. And yeah, we're going to put all of Ustad Abu Taymiyyah's links below, as if you don't already know him, but go show him some love, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Barakallah feek.
Assalamu alaikum.
Barakallah.